All right, everybody, and we are back with part two of the lessons and takeaways from the first 25 episodes of Catholic Founders. If you're for some reason tuning into this episode, just to recap, on the last episode, we did the first 13 episodes. We've recapped all of the core lessons that we learned on Catholic Founders, and now we're going to go from 14 to 25 today. So again, the core goal of this, in case you're again are new, is we've had so many amazing things said and so many pieces of amazing advice been given on the podcast that I wanted to be able to take some time to re-listen to all of the episodes that we've done and to just take note and kind of take stock of where we are, the core lessons that have been shared in the podcast. So think about each of these as a mini recap of each episode that kind of teases what's in the episode. Again, not recapping everything, but just core takeaways from each episode. And that way, if you're a new listener, you can kind of decide, hey, which of these episodes are for me? Everything will be linked in the description as well, so you can go click on the episode that seems most interesting to you. All right, so we're going right back into it where we left off. Episode number 14 with Will O'Brien. Will is the founder or co-founder of a company called Ulysses that is basically building autonomous vehicles for the ocean, above and below ocean, to do things like ecosystem restoration and things like that. It's really, really interesting and noble company and technology, by the way. It's very fascinating. We didn't really talk much about his company per se, but we talked a lot about ambition and whether or not Catholics should become a billionaire. I think that's what the title was. So this was one of a very really cool episode for me because I actually found him on another very very popular podcast, and I thought this guy might be Catholic, so ended up getting him on the pod, thankfully. And actually had the chance to meet him a little while ago in San Francisco. He's also a member of the Catholic Founders Group, so you can reach out to him. Really really great guy. So one of the biggest core takeaways from this is the first one I should say is Catholicism is about moving forward. He made this really interesting point that I don't necessarily know if it's perfectly theologically sound, but it's a really interesting concept that we're trying to work towards heaven personally, and as a result, we're kind of trying to build heaven on earth, if you will. We pray in the Our Father that God's will be done in heaven and on earth. And I think it's an interesting thing for Catholic entrepreneurs to think about, like to what extent do we pursue building kind of not utopia per se, but I mean, heaven effectively is actual utopia. It's the only real utopia. What can we do to make earth more like heaven or make it more perfect? And I think that starts with our own hearts. It's probably the first piece. There's a lot of other things we can do beyond that, but it really, really starts with what's in our hearts. Who are we putting at the center of our lives? So that was a really great point. And then the second one was when you're pursuing great, good things, the devil is really going to work overtime to try to come after you. So for anybody in this work who's committed to it, again, which pretty much everybody listening, you should be aware, right? It's not going to be an easy road. There's going to be many, many temptations, especially for the people who do achieve financial success, which I believe is going to be many of you. You have to remember that you have to stay extra close to God. The more success you achieve, the more you ought to pray. And this goes back to some of the other themes that we mentioned in the first part of this. Prayer is non-negotiable as an entrepreneur. No matter how busy you are, no matter what's going on, you need to have a really good prayer routine, whether that's daily mass or whatever it is. You have to have a very strong prayer routine, and you should probably have a spiritual director directly to talk with to help you kind of structure that and avoid any of the pitfalls that may be coming for you in the near future. So again, recognize that if you're trying to do great things, which again is most of us here, we're really motivated to achieve great things so that we can do good things in the world. The devil's coming for you. All right. Episode number 15 with Andreas Widmer. This one is very, very special. For anybody who does not know, Andreas is the co-founder of the Bush School of Business at the Catholic University of America, where he teaches classes. He actually used to be the bodyguard for 2 years of Pope John Paul II, or Saint Pope John Paul II, as a Swiss guard, and then went into business, went to entrepreneurship, had a really interesting rise in entrepreneurship, and wrote some books now. And we had him on to talk about a lot of different things. So that's a really, really good episode. I'd recommend checking him out. I call him the king of Catholic entrepreneurs because he's kind of like the ringleader, if you will, at least in the U.S. currently. The first point from that episode: God often utilizes our natural desires to bring us deeper into the journey that he's calling us to, especially when we're young. He shared it in his own story with the book, The Pope and the CEO, that I'm currently reading, where he didn't necessarily, have a strong faith, but he thought it'd be really cool to be a Swiss guard. He's like, man, being the bodyguard, the guy with the gun, especially for the Pope, the leader of, a billion people, that's pretty cool. So he wasn't necessarily deep in his faith, but that led him to this experience. And that experience ended up leading him on to other things in the business world, and so on and so forth. And it ended up leading him to where he is now, basically, like I call him the king of Catholic entrepreneurs in America. His point is lean into those things, those desires, even if they are not, they're natural. They're not bad in themselves usually. Sometimes desires are bad, but if you're looking at your good, holy, natural desires, usually they're kind of put there by God, and they're effectively a breadcrumb trail to lead you closer to Him. That's number one. Number two, how God brings us closer to Him is through trusting in Him as we go deeper into our entrepreneurial journey. He described this basically like jumping out of a window and knowing that God's going to catch you because He said He will, and then going up the stairs or up the ladder and doing it again, over and over and over again. And every time you do it, you become much more comfortable with and accustomed to the fact that God will catch you, God will be there for you. And the deeper we go in trusting Him in that, not in a foolish way, but in a way knowing that if God's calling me, who am I to say I'm not gonna pursue it? Think about that one a little bit, because it's very easy as entrepreneurs to want to hedge our bets. Sometimes we've got a good business, maybe we're too afraid to take the next step. Maybe we're afraid to take the first step in the first place. Maybe you're somebody who's not started your business yet. But leaning into that calling, if you will, and trusting that God will have your back. Then the third point, your business or product has to be something that is truly good. This may sound obvious, but really examine what you're building and what the product you have. Is it something that is benefiting others in some positive way? There's plenty of us who, again, maybe the product is relatively simple, may not seem super holy or super cool in that way, but maybe it's helping the people who you're employing. Maybe it's that. Okay, there's always has to be something good to your product. So really apply that. It sounds very simple and silly, but be sure to apply that thinking to what you're doing and just examine. Number four is work is about more than just making money. There is a certain, and this is basically stemming straight from Genesis and from the encyclicals of the popes, that work is something that is really good for man's soul. It's good to have work because it fulfills us. In Genesis, it says that we were called to multiply and to subdue the earth. It's basically a call to work right there. So when people do not have work, when they're unemployed, it's usually not a great sight. It's usually pretty difficult to deal with. If you talk to anybody in that situation, it's not good. So recognize that as an entrepreneur, that work is about much more than making money. Yes, your main motivation right now might be making money for your family, for whatever, but don't make it the primary motivation. Focus on ways to make the work also enjoyable and something that can fit into your plan of life, your prayer routine, etc. So that one, again, really great episode, worth re-listening to, even if you've already heard it. All right, here we go. Episode number 16. This is a mini episode on the Feast of the Ascension, and the two kind of core takeaways that I was trying to put there are: we cannot fully grow unless we have the opportunity to fail. And we sort of mentioned this with the Rob Kazmark episode, episode 13. But you need to allow yourself, or I guess God allows us to fail so that we can grow, but we need to allow our employees to fail to an extent so they can increase in value. We do this so we allow them to fail so that they learn something, so that they grow. And when they grow, they increase in value in the market. Yes, that can be challenging for us individually or as business owners, because maybe somebody wants to poach them because they're well known and whatnot. But the point being, failure is basically a requisite for learning in most cases, right? To truly grow, you have to go through some sort of struggle or challenge. And again, Jesus basically, he left us knowing that we'd be all right. The apostles could fully bloom into their role as the disciples that they were called to be. Second piece from that is that when Jesus left, the disciples, the apostles, they were just super excited to share the gospel. A lot of people think, maybe they'd be sad or whatnot, but they were just really hyped up and doing this. And we have a responsibility to share that just like them. That was basically confirmation, right? Once he ascended and Pentecost happened, that's confirmation. And any of us who are confirmed, do we really bring that same energy to evangelizing the world? I think the answer is usually no. So re-examine that, reconsider that, and approach it from that perspective that, hey, I'm a confirmed, church militant, and I'm a business owner. How can I bring that excitement of St. Paul? I mean, just read the Acts of the Apostles. As Daniel Francis mentioned, which we're getting to in a second, he calls the Acts of the Apostles like a rock album. It's just really exciting. So much going on, so much energy. How often do we bring that to what we do with our work? I don't know. It's a good question. All right, episode 17, Marcelino D'Ambrosio. So many people know Marcelino. He's very, very active on LinkedIn. But him and his brother run Sherwood Fellows, and they do a lot of really good marketing work. So if you're ever looking for marketing advice or branding advice, they do great stuff there. And they are also producing, or I think it's coming out very soon, or it's already debuting places, as The Triumph of the Heart, a movie about Saint Maximilian Kolbe. Really, really impactful. I'm excited to see that soon. I brought him on to talk about marketing. I really wanted to get the Catholic perspective on marketing. So if that's something of interest to you, check out the episode. The three things from that one are: number one, to market well, you need to integrate your marketing team with the rest of your company, from product to sales, everything. So that way your marketing can be honest. Because if you have kind of arbitrary metrics set for your marketing team where it's like, hey, we just need to increase clicks or whatever, it can lead to very easily, and this is not necessarily a slippery slope. This is a very quick thing that happens. Your marketing can become very dishonest. The product promises everything, they're not true because you are just incentivizing them to try to get a certain amount of clicks. They're not focused on the overall product integration, if you will. So make sure the team is fully integrated. Same way we talked about with Jeff Scheffelbein about integrating the culture into the team as being the core thing rather than just something that you bolt on. Marketing has to be the same thing. And you could even argue those are the same. Culture and marketing, all of that comes from culture. It comes from what you're doing. Is it a good product? These kind of themes continue to come up now. Second piece, short-term thinking will drive bad marketing and hurt your brand. This is somewhat similar to the first point, that if you're just focused on short-term results of increasing ROI or increasing sales of some sort, you can often make mistakes that you could really avoid if you were thinking in the long term. If you are looking to build a business that is going to be generations run by your kids or your grandkids, hopefully, or who knows who it is, but as long as it's something to be institutional, something long term, do not think on the short term. We had a few different points that we touched on in that episode about that, but just keep in mind that what you're building, like, why are you building it? Are you just building it to sell? Are you building it to IPO? Or are you building something that you're trying to make last for ages, right? Not because you want your ego to be fed, but because good things should endure, right? The church has endured for this long. Obviously, the church has the special protection of the Holy Spirit, but the point is, there's many, think about St. Benedict's order. His order was founded in, I believe, the 400s or something. I mean, it's still around, right? Maybe they've gone through some reforms. I'm not actually sure of the history there, but you should aim to build something of substance because that is an indicator that it is probably pretty good. So think about that and don't go for the short-term thinking. Third point, the point of scale, this is really important. The point of scale is to remove the human element. And as Catholics, we need to be cautious of this because humans are the focus of work. As we mentioned before with Andreas, the focus of work should be on the human. When you're trying to achieve massive scale with your company and grow to really, really huge numbers, your objective with systems and all these processes is to effectively remove the human element so that you don't have quote unquote variables, right? We talk about this later. I won't spoil the beans on this one, but there's another point around AI and the importance of having human feel to things. So again, as you're scaling your business, keep in mind, I know you want to get efficiencies, etc., but the human element is the core thing. So scaling, the whole point of it is to remove humans. We don't want to do that exactly. It's against Catholic social teaching. All right, episode number 18, Daniel Francis. He's the founder and CEO of Able Police. Basically increase the police force's time on the streets by helping them automate report writing, which apparently takes like 40 to 50% of their time. It's insane how much it takes. So really, really interesting episode. This guy is an absolute, he's very, very sharp. Let's put it that way. He's a very thoughtful person too. So check that out. The first point on this one is we forget that we are also called to build things. And the way he points this out is in the Mass, we say, forgive me for the sins I have committed and the things that I've done and the things that I've failed to do. And that failed to do part, we usually just tiptoe right over. We don't even think about it. How many of us, especially builders, right? He's based in San Francisco, so this is really, really applicable for SF folks. How many of us really, really answer the call to build what we're called to build? Are we using our skills to change the world? Are we using our skills to do good things? Are we noticing problems and going after them, or are we just chasing some kind of trend or AI or some kind of widget that's like, hey, I can make money doing this? And maybe it's okay. Some people start out that way, but I think our true calling is to do something of more substance, if that makes sense. So don't forget that we are called to build things. We had a whole other side discussion in that about the importance of keeping up the infrastructure of our country. Things are prone to decay, and unless we put some effort into it, we're not going to be able to maintain society in a good way. It's a kind of a sidebar, but that's the first point. All right, the second point is that, and this one's, I think, very, very impactful. Loving your neighbor should be focused more locally than we think, not just on people in, a third world country. I think this is very common for us to get into this idea that, oh, we gotta love the poor, love the people in terrible situations, and we immediately go to the people in the worst conditions. Now, that's noble to an extent, but, and I heard this mentioned somewhere else, that it ends up leading to us forgetting about the culpability that we have in terms of our actual immediate neighbors' needs. If we live in a place like New York City where there's all kinds of homelessness situation and whatnot, focusing on helping people in, I don't know, Honduras or something compared to the people that are right next to you in your community is really just like a cognitive dissonance. So we need to love our neighbors literally, like our actual people who are close to us, our fellow parishioners. How well do you know them? How well do you know the struggles they're going through? Do you know them well enough in the first place that if they do need help, that they'll come to you and ask for help? Probably not many of us can answer that one very well. So really, really think about that. We are called to love our neighbors, and that does not just mean people far away. It means the people first immediate to us. There's actually a specific method of going through this. I don't know the exact where I heard this, but you basically think about who you're closest to, and there's kind of this. I don't know if it's technically the concept of subsidiarity, but you kind of go through the list of who's closest to you. If somebody's child dies, who's going to take care of that child? Probably their brother or their sister, and then probably maybe their parents, then maybe their grandparents, maybe their uncle, whatever. Like you kind of go down the list of people who have the most closest connection and closest responsibility. So keep that in mind. Episode 19 with Nathan Crankfield. Nathan runs an amazing podcast called Seeking Excellence, and he also works at Hallow as a salesperson. And he does speaking, he does a lot of things. Really, really, really great episode. If anybody does not know Nathan, I would highly recommend checking out his podcast. It's very good. We talked about a number of things here. So the four that I took away were, number one, poverty is not a virtue in itself, especially for lay people. People sometimes glorify this idea of poverty in a way to basically allow themselves to be lazy. I don't want to be too rude about it, but we have skills. God gave us like a lot of potential. Even if you look at the people in the world who are completely, secular, completely godless, and the things that they achieve, can you imagine how much that we can achieve with God's help? So if you just kind of take the human alone and see what they're capable of, and then imagine just like multiplying it and putting super juice on it, that's what we are capable of with God's help. So people who are like, oh no, it's not good to make money, it's not good to focus on that. That basically translates into your life as, I'm not going to try to, increase my income, which could be better for my family, which also could be, maybe I don't have family. It could be better for how I can support the church, something like that. And if you're not going to support the church financially because you're growing, in your career ladder, then you better be using your time for the church, right? You have to give something. So do not mistake this idea that poverty in itself is a virtue. You need to be pursuing poverty in spirit and living below your means. We talked about this before. Living like at the level that you need, but just being poor itself, like naturally, is not necessarily a virtue. You have to work hard. We have to use our skills. It's in the parable of the talents. Okay. Second point. Men especially have a calling to provide for their families. And if that means developing a side hustle, then do it. So many Catholic men want to make excuses as to why that, it's too much work. I won't be able to get to daily mass, whatever. The answer is truly almost everybody has the ability to develop a side hustle. And if you don't, then there's a lot of other things to examine in your life. If you don't have something where it's like, hey, could I make an extra $1,000 a month or $500 a month doing something? Most of us should have an answer. If we don't, this goes back to the question of skills and having value in your time, which we talked about with the Colin Stroud episode. I think it was episode 6, that you need to develop some sort of skill that makes you valuable in the world so that you can leverage that to produce more value for somebody else, and then you can capture a piece of that. So again, we do have a responsibility to provide for our families. So especially men, think about this and be willing to develop a side hustle. There's plenty of ways to do it, especially in the age of AI. So many ways, so many resources. There's literally no excuse. All right, number 3, we have a responsibility to do everything that we do as well as we can, and that's what Jesus would do. So it's pretty obvious. Like, if we're going to do something, do it really, really well. Jesus, if he was doing it, how well would he do it? Try to imitate that. Number 4, You can be busy and achieve holiness. I think that if we look at almost all the saints, they probably were doing a lot of things. They're probably involved in a lot of stuff, but you can achieve holiness even if you are busy. So do not leave it as an excuse. I mean, look at people like Tom Monahan, like the things he was involved in. Yes, he kept a great prayer routine, but he was also probably very busy with his schedule. So these are not excuses. There's plenty of examples that can prove this. All right, we'll keep moving. Try to keep the time here. Episode 20, Juan Acosta. So Juan is building Tabella, basically a free way for parishes to manage their parish, and it's funded basically by local business owners advertising on the platform. Really, really great episode. He's also the co-founder of the Sent Angels Network. So the core things from this one: Catholic business owners need to lead the charge in making stronger parishes because we can employ other people in the parish, and we can even support the priest's goal. Again, as a business owner, you have a lot more sway in the community. Usually, even if you have a small business, there's a lot of sway that you have in the community, and it could be more. It doesn't have to be financial ways necessarily. It could just be the presence that you have in the community, the attitude that you have. Somebody just reminded me of this saying today. It's like priests get like about an hour and a half or an hour with the parishioners every week. You get 40 hours with your employees, or 5 or 10 hours maybe, or maybe a little less with your customers. So use that opportunity for influence. As a business owner, just realize that there's a specific connection that you have to your parish that you should lean into. Number 2, we need to be genuine neighbors to our fellow parishioners so that we can get through tough times. This came up just a little while ago, that we need to know each other well, so that way when times do get tough, people can feel free to reach out to us and we can support them. We are family and we need to treat it like this. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ. Take it seriously. Number 3, money is an amplifier. If you have spiritual poverty, having money will just make you worse. If you have, ordered your desires properly, you can make a really, really big impact with money. So do not see money as some kind of evil. It is something that basically amplifies the person you are. This goes back to, again, a common topic through the whole thing here. As the founders, we need to we need to be Christian and deeply virtuous in who we are, so that way it goes through the company, and again, in this case, it will amplify what we're able to achieve with money or wealth, etc. Number 4, be willing to come to God about your business and how He's calling you to do things. Take things to God, take discussions or questions to God in adoration or whatnot. He will help you and guide you through this process. Episode 21 with Jennifer Ball. She is the founder of YCP. She's now stepped down as the founder. She's an advisor right now with them. But we took the time with her to review what it was like building YCP, and she just gave a lot of amazing reflections, honestly. That episode is just banger after banger. I feel like these episodes just keep getting better, but go listen to that one with Jennifer. She's awesome. The first takeaway is we need to be willing to share our successes, because God can touch the lives of others through us sharing. I think I mentioned this in one of the other takeaways already a little bit, is that if God gave us the skills and the opportunity to achieve something great, to achieve some sort of success, even if it's not huge, why are we so unwilling to share it with others? I know some people say, oh, I'm just trying to be humble. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to brag. But is it really bragging if you recognize the situation? If you recognize, you look at the situation, everything in the equation comes from God. All you did was basically say, I welcome that. You become a complete vessel. So when you're talking about your success, it's not you who did it. How can you take credit for just accepting the thing that God gave you, the circumstances God put you in? You just glorify God with it. You become a true vessel. And I think Jennifer, out of all the people I've talked to, well, Tim Connors is also like this. She might be the best at really embodying what it means to be a vessel of God. It's incredible. So really think about that you should share your successes, because you don't know what God wants to achieve and use through you sharing that success more publicly with others, to inspire others, to get other people involved in your mission, whatever it is. Don't be afraid of sharing your success. And I really, really mean this, especially people listening. I don't know how many of you guys are already massively successful versus getting there. You have to take this seriously. I genuinely believe that this is a very big shortfalling of many Catholic millionaires and billionaires that are just trying to quote unquote, play it low, when in reality they ought to be out there banging the drums and being willing to open themselves up to criticism so that they can improve as well. So really, really noodle on that one. The next one is that we already talked about this a little bit, but we need to learn to become total vessels of God so He can do much more with us. We mentioned this earlier. If people are capable of so much, imagine how much more you're capable of if God is the one really, really kind of driving that. So maybe it's 10 units of awesomeness, and it's like 1,000 or 1,000,000 when God's involved. So become a vessel in order for God to really, really turn up the volume. The next one, the challenges of work are very conducive for growing in virtue if you're willing to do so. So the challenges and the things you get put through in work, just great opportunity to practice patience, practice justice, discernment, whatever. So many opportunities. View your business and your work as that. Even when the times are tough, just lean into what it's teaching you and what you can learn from a virtue perspective. The next one, recall often that this is not about you, it's all about God. This is basically the through line of Jennifer's entire life, effectively. She's just trying to make sure that she recognizes this is not about me. I'm willing to share, I'm willing to do all these things because this is all about God. All right, episode 22. Dominic Taroli. He's the founder of Dominus Lab, and they're basically trying to create 1,000 Christian AI startups by 2030, effectively to combat all of the woke stuff that's happening with the current LLMs, right? If you like test them on a political spectrum, they all end up in a very liberal category. There's no conservative things, and it's not to say that you need to make it political. It's just that these LLMs they're not harboring Christian values effectively. I will shout out to Magisterium AI. It's not its own LLM to my understanding, but it's completely trained on church teachings, the scriptures and the encyclicals, etc. So it's completely accurate. But if you've not used that, I would recommend getting on it. So we had him on to talk about anything at the intersection of business owners and AI, both tech, more tech companies, venture-backed companies, and small businesses. Really good episode. The core things from this one: the things that have no soul will become automated. AI is very easily able to automate the kind of boring, repeatable tasks and the soulless things. So keep the soul in the things that you do. Keep the human aspect. Keep the value and the special touches that you bring to it as a human. AI may get to a point where it can do some of this stuff, but there are always going to be things where it's like you want the human touch. You want something that is really specific. So if you're, again, this goes back to the point of scaling and automation, that you want to build businesses that are not just purely about streamlining something and doing it kind of in a robotic way. Maybe it could be a good way to start a side hustle, but if you're building a good company and you want to make sure that your employees have value in the business and they have constant employment, you want to make sure that you keep the soul part in your products and your services. Second one, as AI changes everything to do morally good things, we have to keep people at the center of our focus. Again, AI, it's not really a question at this point. AI will change pretty much how our entire world works. We as Catholics need to be willing to take a stance on standing up for humanity in this aspect, okay? I'm going to leave it at that. Think about it. Next one, because AI is going to happen basically with or without us, we need to be the ones engaged on the front lines. So this is sort of related to the first one, or to the last one I just mentioned, but this could more apply to the founders in AI. I had this discussion with some folks in San Francisco about, venture scalable businesses are sometimes challenging from like a moral perspective because it's so challenging. You have to work so hard and do certain things that are, in some ways unnatural. But the truth is, some businesses can only be built with venture dollars, a venture scale model. Would you rather have complete heathens running them or Catholics? I think we know the answer. So just keep that in mind. Episode 23, Tim Glumkowski. Tim is a really incredible guy. Most of his life has been spent building strong parishes in missionary work. He's also built some companies. And probably the coolest thing he's ever done is that he was the CEO of the National Eucharistic Congress. So he had a lot of things to share. I'm going to try to keep this one brief. I had 5 points from his. The first one is that we have to evangelize in the world, but be present and engaged in our parishes to have strong parishes. This goes back to a bunch of the other points. Chris Pereira, Juan Acosta, same things. We have to be engaged in our parishes, but we are not necessarily evangelizing in our parishes. We are evangelizing out in the world, but being engaged in our parish. If we are absent from our parish, if we're not there for people, what service are we doing to our brother? We don't have to be evangelizing to them, but we have to be there to support. It's a whole support system. And what happens when we need that support system? If we weren't engaged, we're also in a bind. Next one is, I'll keep it short. God sometimes destroys things to prepare the way for something new. In his story, he had lost pretty much everything. He had a really great thing going. COVID came, destroyed it all. He was effectively almost completely broke. He didn't have enough money to make next month's rent, and then got a job from the diocese just in time for him to pay the rent. That's all I'm going to say, is that you have to recognize that when things get really bad, sometimes God is coming to prepare you for something else. Next one. Often the feeling to be a missionary can seem like being a missionary, but we need to be on mission the entire time. In essence, some people feel like, oh, I want to go be a focused missionary or something. Really, We're all called to be missionaries. The apostles went out and they were missionaries. It's part of being a true Christian is that we are missionary in nature. So don't just think you have to go be a missionary specifically. You should be a missionary in everything you do, whether it's a business or whatever, right? In your like everyday life, you have to be a missionary. Next one. Being busy is not an excuse not to pray. If anything, when we're busy, we should pray more. This has come up many times. I'm going to leave it there. God doesn't only want to work. God doesn't only want to work on the world through us. He wants to work in our own hearts. He wants to transform us in a way that is only possible when we are kind of working with Him on the world. If this makes sense, there's kind of this connection between our work in the world and how He's changing our hearts through doing it. And He gave some examples of Moses and how that experience, those experiences that he went through, actually transformed his own heart deeper. And then Tim would go on to make this point that if we want to genuinely kind of change the world, the only way we're going to do that is if we have leaders whose hearts are fully transformed and fully given to God. I think we're the leaders that are called to be that. We are the people who, if we are unhappy with some of the things going on in the world, which we should be, have we transformed or have we asked God to help us transform our own hearts so that we can be fully His and lead the world to something great? And this goes again, applies to the thing where if we're just a vessel, God can do 100,000 times more than what we can do on our own. Okay, think about it. Last one with Tim is that we need to learn to trust in the Lord for money. I think this is hard for entrepreneurs sometimes. We tend to worry about how we're going to pay the next bills, especially when we're starting out, but He will provide for us. We just need to trust in Him. I'm going to leave it there. I could talk about that one forever. Episode 24. Okay, we're getting close to the end, guys. Stick with me. Episode 24 with Dan Egan. Dan came on the show to talk about the St. Joseph Wall project that he basically co-led, and it's a huge mural to St. Joseph the Worker in Detroit. He did this basically to promote the presence of the Institute of Christ the King's oratory in Detroit, which has been seeing amazing growth over the past, I think, 8 years or 10 years. I forget how long. It's got to be 10 years now. I think it's 2015 roughly when they started. So great episode. If you want to build projects like that, you want to be involved in public artworks to bring the faith back into the world, check that one out for sure. He also talks about a lot of other things with us because he's a really connected guy. First one is you got to use your skills to execute well on a project. This goes to the same point of doing things well. We need to do things well, and you've been given skills. Don't do it halfway. You've got skills for the thing that's been put in front of you. Somebody's asked you for help. Do it really well. Use your skills well. Second one, work with your priest to help them realize their vision for the parish, for the community, and the city. As soon as Canon Stein got to Detroit, Dan, he was well connected in Detroit at the time, and he said, "Hey, Canon Stein, what can I do? I want to get to know you. What can I do? Who can I introduce you to really make your vision known?" A lot of priests do not have this. They are running on the fumes. They're super stretched thin. If you can become an instrument of his kind of dreams or goals, if you will, that's a really noble cause. So I think all of us should take this to heart. Like, how many of us have spoken with our priest about what they would love to see done in the parish, and we can become the hands to go make that happen. Anybody, any of us can do that. Again, we don't even have to have the vision. We just have to help them execute. And we have skills. As business owners, we have lots of skills, and we usually have some resources. Next one is that God expects us to keep actively moving and acting even when we don't know what the next step is, right? Think about Moses and the exile as they go out of Egypt. They literally get to the ocean. It's like, man, we are so screwed. What's going on next? And then it's forced to just next thing. You just keep going. You keep taking actions. And sometimes that's exactly what's required for God to do His work in the background and make the next thing happen. This happened with Dan in their story of getting the mural built. There was just brick wall after brick wall, no pun intended, that they just could not paint or get through. And eventually they made it happen. So they kept going. And a core thing there is that he had a team surrounding him that pushed him. If he was on his own, he said he would have gotten pretty discouraged pretty quickly. So the final one there with him is that we need to set the example of building beautiful art because God touches people through art. We shouldn't be ashamed of spending money on beautiful churches, beautiful buildings, artwork like this, because art is a way that the human spirit is pointed to God, especially well done, beautiful art. It's pointed to God. Do not be afraid to skimp on art, and do not bash the people who spend their money to promote beautiful art because you may think it's silly. But again, it can lead a lot of people to God. Episode 25, this last one. We're finally there. Thanks for hanging in. This is with Tim Connors. This is an absolute banger. I can't believe that this worked out perfectly. That Tim was episode 25. He is a 4 times Midas List recipient or nominee, I guess you'd say. And I call him the number one Catholic of BC in terms of like being a Catholic and a VC. He doesn't only invest in Catholic companies, but he invests in companies that change the world and really move people in a better way. They really help people. The core things for this one is use all of your ability to help solve the problems of your neighbors to the greatest extent possible. This guy could easily just relax. I'm sure he's got enough money to just relax and chill and enjoy his life, but he is going out there doing as much as he can. He just recently moved to Nashville, and he told a story on the pod where he went to five, I think it was five local parishes over the course of when they had first moved, and not a single one of them had reached out to shake his hand. And he was like, he went to the bishop and he said, "Hey, this is kind of embarrassing, isn't it?" Like he didn't say it was embarrassing. He told the bishop what happened, and the bishop was like, "Wow, this is kind of embarrassing." And his point was, if we can welcome people in, if we can shake their hand, the people that we don't recognize, people who aren't there all the time, we can get them plugged into the community. They're not going to leave. He actually doubled the capacity of or the attendance of his parish back in California before moving to Tennessee, doing the exact same thing, making sure that greeters looked for people who they didn't recognize and tried to bring them into the community, because once they're in the community, they're not going to leave. Now, I say this as an example because, again, he's really going out and he's taking this idea seriously that we are supposed to solve the needs of our neighbors, and the soul is obviously in need of his neighbor, right? He wants the souls of everybody to be well and good. So he goes talks to the bishops and tries to get these things changed. Another example of this is he's trying to actually get canon law adjusted so that this is a requirement of basically every church, kind of the way that things are conducted. He wants to change it. Like, who would think to do that? Not me, not at least until I heard Tim mention it. That's one, and I might have duplicated a few of these, but that's one. Second one was that founders run in packs. This is not necessarily that impactful. I just found this very interesting that I'd never thought about this, that good founders, good people tend to work with others. Maybe I'm just biased and maybe this is like an ad for the paid community, but I really believe in the importance of having those people around you, other builders, other people who are ambitious about the faith and ambitious about their work. Check out Catholic Founder Skills, $10 a month or $100 a year. You'll love it. All right. When you love your customers, they are really happy and they leave really high net promoter scores. If you're not familiar with net promoter scores, it's basically like if they're a 10 on that scale, they're going to go tell everybody about your product, and you'll basically get free salespeople for your company. So this is directly correlated with loving your customer. If you take care of them and you do the right thing for them, this will happen. So for companies familiar with the term CAC, cost of acquisition, customer acquisition cost, sorry, it's getting late. That is basically free CAC. If you can love your customers and treat them so well that they go and tell everybody about your business and about your service, you're going to grow faster than other people, because there's this whole ratio he explains about how much money does it take to get your customer, and that then allows you to reinvest that money to get the next customer and to grow and scale the business, right? And I just think it's very interesting. This is another point where it refers to the first one, where he's actually trying to convince some people at Harvard to write this exact kind of wording or write this paper, because it would be more impactful if it comes from somebody like me at Harvard. But there's already so much proof that points to net promoter scores and loving your customer are basically the same thing. It's Christian charity. It's right there at the heart of it. It's really, really, really fascinating. The next one, the startup method in itself is virtuous. Love the customer and find ways to measure how well it helps your customer. You can apply the startup method to so many things, like the agile methodology. Like, what's the funnel here? What's the system? How can we adjust it? He's doing this with he did this with Notre Dame when he was on the board there, and he's doing it again with Catholic University of America. He does it with parishes and everything. He's just like trying to take this startup methodology of how can we grow this and how can we remove the barriers, fix the funnels, blah 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 blah, to make this thing better. So it was a really interesting, eye-opening thing for me, that the whole idea of a more pure play startup, not necessarily just kind of like building an agency or something. There is a certain virtue in the entire structure of it, which I found fascinating. All right, and then final one here. If we get people active in the parish, we will keep them in the church. I already alluded to this, how he doubled the size of the attendance in his church in California. It really comes down to what they found is that you need to get people involved, get them into a small group, get them somehow involved where they have community, and they will stay in church. And when they stay in church, their faith will deepen, and hopefully one day they will become saints. All right, those are the core things. Again, that's all 25 episodes. I don't know what we're at for time here, but we're at 45-ish minutes. Okay, so we're going to try to just wrap up with a couple last reflections here. The through line to me for all of this is the word excellence. It comes up so many times. I didn't necessarily bring up the word excellence, but doing things well, whatever. That is mentioned in so many of these. There's a lot of things where the themes continue and they come through again and again, but excellence is a core one. This is one of the things that just gets at the core of being a Catholic founder. It's really, really striking at the heart that we must examine our hearts on a regular basis to ask ourselves, are we truly, truly pursuing excellence in the work we do, the way we treat our customers, the way we treat our suppliers, everybody? What kind of way would Jesus do this? The type of excellence that we want to have is the type of excellence that Jesus would have if he were doing this, if he were running our business. You can't imagine that Jesus was in the lab with his dad making carpentry, doing stuff halfway. He would do it with excellence. Can you just imagine? There's actually probably artifacts of things that Jesus carved. Sidebar, ADHD thought there. But the whole point is like he wouldn't do it halfway. He would do it well, very, very well. Are you doing what you do as well as Jesus would do it? If not, ask him for the grace to help to do that. All right, with that said, thanks to everybody. I really, really appreciate your support over 25 episodes. It is a lot of work to do this, and we've been getting a lot more paid subscribers recently, so I really appreciate the people kind of recognizing that and supporting the work. We are just getting started, though. This is 25 down. I mean, as David Senmer says, he's always like, 303 down, 1,000 to go. This is basically the same thing. 25 down, hundreds to go, thousands to go. There's so many conversations to be had with Catholic entrepreneurs, and we are just scratching the surface. There's a couple of really good themes in here, as you've seen, but there's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more tactics to learn, so please follow along with us more and share the podcast. This is the only way it grows. I would also say, if any of these specific episodes resonate with you, go check them out. I've linked them all in the description, so you can check out all the episodes you haven't listened to yet or the ones that really kind of stick out to you, and there's so much value there. But share these two guides to the episode so maybe people can get a taste of what is held within this podcast so far. And this extends to the paid community as well. The kind of things that are being said here in the podcast, there's a lot of them that are being said only in private in our monthly calls. So again, if you are interested in joining, it's $10 a month or $100 a year to join the Catholic Founders Guild. You get access to the community, to the directory, to 3 calls a month, a monthly members call, a monthly topic call, and a monthly expert call, where people will come in and talk about things like tax or whatnot, just advice about running your business. So we have a really good community to work with, to build alongside, and to do business with each other. I mean, I can't even figure out how many times people have done business with each other in the community already. So it's totally worth it. Just go to catholicfounders.com/subscribe. You do have to apply, and I will have to interview you. So I'm not letting anybody in unless I interview them and get to know them, just to make sure they're a good egg. So got to keep the quality high. All right. It's a long one. Sorry, I'm rambling. It's late at night, but God bless and happy building.